Hey sis, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are doing a detailed eyeshadow tutorial for beginners. Now this is strictly for my beginners who absolutely do not know how to apply eyeshadow. I broke this down step by step. Follow along with me, grab your products, grab your brushes if you need to, put me on pause, do what you need to do to get this. So if you're interested in how to achieve a really basic, everyday type of eyeshadow look, just in time for summer of course, then just continue to watch. All right, sis, so I have you guys up a little bit more closer and personal so you guys can really see what I'm doing with my eyeshadow. So the first thing that you need to make sure that you do to prep your eyes for eyeshadow is to prime. So just like when you're doing your face, you want to prime your eyelids as well. And as you guys can see, my face is completely done. I avoided doing anything on my eyes just to show you guys how to achieve an eyeshadow look today. So first thing is priming. So when it comes to priming, you can use a designated eyeshadow primer or a concealer. So if you're going to be using a concealer, you want to make sure that this concealer is oil-free. Now, reason being is you don't want to add more oils onto your skin. That is the last thing you want to do. So you want to make sure that you're either using a really natural concealer that doesn't have any oils or a mattifying concealer. So just to compare two concealers, I have my L'Oreal True Match Serum Concealer. Now, when you think of serums, these are oil-based products. So of course, this concealer is going to have oil in it. So you definitely want to avoid this one. I do have my Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Sculpting Concealer, and this is a multi-benefit concealer. It's oil-free. You can use it for just about anything, and it's also full coverage. When I think of full coverage concealers, these tend not to have a lot of oil in it, so it's something I would use. You can also use any type of cream-based concealer. I know the NARS has a really good cream pot concealer that you can use as well. So when you're thinking of concealers, try to use something that is a little bit more on the matte and less oil. So today I'm going to be using my Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Sculpting Concealer. And before I get into the application, we are using another BK Beauty brush set. So this one here is the BK Beauty Core Extension Eye Brush Set, and this comes with 4 specific eyeshadow brushes. And to be honest, that's all we need for today's look. So I'm going to show you guys this kit. You guys could actually go out and buy it for yourself. I'll leave it in the description box below. But this is pretty much all the brushes you would need to complete an eyeshadow look. All right, so when it comes to applying your concealer, along with your concealer and priming your eyelids, you can do the cleanup to your eyebrows, which is what I'm going to do today. I like pooling both of those in the same step. So today I'm going to be using my e.l.f. concealer brush, and this is a flat brush. When it comes to shaping your brows, you want to work with something that's more flat. So this one is a really good and affordable brush that you can use to shape up your brows as well as prime your eyelids. All right, so I already went ahead and shaped up my brows with the Revlon Color Stay Micro Brow Pencil. I am in the shade Soft Black, and now I'm just going to use my concealer to shape them up. So I just like to take some onto the brush like so, and then I just like to use little strokes to carve out the brow. And now that I have the concealer, I like to just bring it down, and this is going towards the eyelids. And at this point, I could use the remaining and just apply it to the lids. So just like that, I've shaped my brows and I've applied it onto the lid. So at this point, you can go ahead and blend it out. I am going to be using my e.l.f. blending brush. So it looks just like this. And what you want to do is just blend that concealer. I like to blend it down towards the eyelids. And then once I get to the eyelids, I blend it out. And this concealer that you use is 9 times out of 10 the same concealer that you used for your highlighting concealer. Now, the reason being is if you have really dark lids like myself, this really helps to not only prime your eyelids, but also conceal it so that you aren't putting eyeshadow on a dark eyelid. All right, so you guys could automatically see the difference between both eyes. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do the same thing to the other side. And a really good tip to know that your concealer is in fact oil-free is that it really dries down really quickly. So you have to work really fast with your concealer. They're also a little bit more harder to blend out. So say I left this concealer on for more than a minute or two, you'll find that it's really hard to blend out, which is what we want, but you need to act fast. So as soon as you put it on to your eyelids blend it out right away. All right, so now we have a really even base for our eyeshadow. So at this point, we can jump into the eyeshadow application. All right, so today's eyeshadow palette of choice today is the Makeup Revolution Ultimate Nudes palette. This is in the medium shade range. Now this is a really neutral eyeshadow palette, so we're working with really natural colors. Now taking my BK Beauty Core Extension eye palette, we're gonna go in with the first brush. So the first brush is the number 212 brush, and that is a medium blender brush. So the first thing is your transition shade. So when it comes to your transition shade for the brush, you wanna go in with a really fluffy blending brush. Now this fluffy brush is what's going to kind of create that base for your eyeshadow. And when it comes to your transition shade is always a shade that is closest to your skin tone. So for deeper complexions, we want to go for something that is really close to our skin tone. I like to pick up shades that are more in the orange tone or nude orangey type of shades for my skin complexion. If you're of a lighter skin complexion, you can go for something more nude, just something that is similar to your complexion, but a little bit deeper, if that makes any sense. So for me in this palette, I'm looking at what my options are. I can go in with either this one here in the corner or this one. So today I'm gonna dip into this shade here. And what you wanna do is just slightly pack some of that pigment onto the brush, and then you're gonna dust off the excess. You never wanna go straight in onto your lid with the eyeshadow. Always dust off the excess. And this is just gonna help ensure that you're not putting a lot of that eyeshadow pigment onto your eyelids. You can always build up, but you can't take away. So start with a little, dust off the excess, and then work from there. So when it comes to your transition shade, you just want to focus that in the crease. So I like to just go with windshield wiper motions and just focus that in the crease. You can do it by following your natural eye shape, and then you can do the outer V as well. So just like that. And then again, you can dip in if you don't have that pigment. And the reason I use a fluffy brush is because it's really easy to fluff on to the eyelids. You don't really have to worry about preciseness per se, especially if you have an eyelid like myself. It's really wide and open. Now, if you have a smaller eye where your creases are a lot more closer together, you may not want to use something that's so fluffy. You want to use something that's a little bit more tapered together. So I'm just gonna continue building that shade. And you can see that this shade, you can see it. It's not too deep, it's not too harsh, but it's really close to my natural skin tone, which is what you want. So we call it a transition shade because this is what all the other colors we're gonna use is going to transition into. All right, so next after your transition shade is your crease shade. So when it comes to the eyeshadow application, we're working from the top down. So we start with transition shade, crease shade, and then our lid. So it's literally 3 steps to a full eyeshadow look. So like I said, your crease shade is next. When it comes to your crease shade is always the deepest shade. Like you want to put something that's really deep into the crease. This is going to define it and really bring the whole look together. So when it comes to a deep shade, I like to use really dark browns in my crease, or just honestly anything deeper than your transition shade. So the brush that I'm going to use for my crease shade is the 211 Detail Blender brush. Now I like that it's called Detail because this is what's going into our crease. This is where the detail of the eyeshadow look is going to come into play. So when it comes to your crease brush is normally a lot more slimmer and tapered together. It's also pointy towards the tip, and that is reason being so that it can get directly into that crease. We don't want it to go anywhere but that crease. So like I said, your crease shade is always a shade that is deeper and darker. So I'm gonna go in with this shade here. So you can see that it's slightly a bit deeper than my transition shade. So again, you want to dip into that eyeshadow, dust off the excess, and then you want to find your crease. Your crease is literally where the fold is. So where that fold is where you want to apply that eyeshadow. So find your crease, and then I like to just use windshield wiper motions for my crease. And you know that you're applying your crease shade is when you can feel that brush inside your socket. That is where your crease is. All right, so we have the crease shade in. Now at this point, you can continue to go deeper and deeper if you want with your eyeshadow. And I think I wanna do that today just to show you guys. So I'm gonna go back into my palette and I'm gonna take an even deeper shade. So we're gonna go in with this deep dark brown shade. And I'm gonna use the same crease brush. We're gonna dip into that. Dust off the excess. Now with this deeper brown shade, I'm honestly just keeping it in the crease, but in the outer V of my eyes. So that's from here and here. And this is just gonna really smoke out the eyeshadow look. So again, we find the crease and we're just applying it to that outer V. And all you're doing is creating a V in that corner. This is really going to give the smokiness of the eyeshadow. All right, so once you got the pigment that you want to go back in with your first brush, which is your transition shade brush. Now with nothing on it, you want to just go over and just make sure that all the colors are blended together. You can add a little bit of that eyeshadow, but as a beginner, I feel like not putting anything on it just really helps. And all you're doing is blending everything together so that there's no harsh lines between any of the shades. So just like that, we have our transition shade and we have our crease shade. So now we can move on to our lid shade. Now when it comes to your lid shade, you want to go in with a flat brush. I feel like a flat brush will really help to not only carve out that shade onto your lids, but it will also help to pack on the shade. Flat brushes are really, really good for shimmer or metallic shades. You can also use it for matte shades as well, but the technique between both of them are different. So the brush I'm going to be using for my lid shade is the BK Beauty 209 brush, and this is the mini shader brush. Now when it comes to your lid shade is the lightest shade that you're ever going to use on your lids. Now this is going to give that pop to your eyeshadow look. Now when I say pop, it's either a pop of shimmer, a pop of color, something really bright on the lid. So in this palette, I think I want to go in with a shimmer shade. So I'm going to go in with this nice gold shade in the center here. And I'm just going to take my brush. Now with shimmer shades, you want to pack on that shade. You don't want to dust it off. You want as much pigment for your lids. So you want to keep that shade on the brush. Now when it comes to shimmer or metallic shades, you want to sweep it onto the eyelid. So just like that, you're going to see that it really smooths onto the lid. And in this way, you can really carve it out onto the lid. So all you're doing is following your natural eyelids. Now you can bring it all the way to the end if you want, but because we're going for a more smoky look, we're going to stop like a little bit halfway, maybe even a quarter way with that. And then we're just gonna leave the outer really smoked. Now, once you have your lid shade on, you wanna go back into your crease brush. So that's the more tapered brush. We're gonna dip into that brown shade, dust off the excess, and we're just going to create more of a smoke to the eye look, really apply in the crease, so that we don't lose that pigment. And then again, back with your blending brush to make sure that there's no harsh lines, everything is blended. And you just want to make sure that these two shades blend together. So taking nothing on the brush, I like to just sweep those two shades together so that they blend seamlessly together. All right, so whatever we do to the top, we want to do to the bottom. So we're gonna work on the bottom portion of the eyelids. So with the bottom portion, we're gonna go in with the BK Beauty number 210 brush, and this is a mini pencil brush. Pencil brushes are really good for detailing underneath the eyes. And I love it because it's pointed. This is gonna make sure that you're directing that shade and keeping that shade just directly under the eyes. You don't want it to fall onto your face. You want it to stick right underneath the lash line. So that's why I really like recommending pencil brushes to my beginners. They're really easy to use. All right, so when it comes to what you apply on your bottom lash line, you're kind of going the opposite way. So first you want to go in with your crease shade first. So whatever you use into your crease, you want to go in with that. So I'm going to dip into that crease shade, which was a really dark, deep shade here. Dust off the excess. And then what you want to do is just shade this on the bottom lash line. And I like to connect it to the outer area here. And that's what's going to bring the whole eyeshadow look together. So I like to just connect it just right here, and you're gonna see that it just blends into the smoky area that you created. And then after you applied your crease shade, you wanna go back into your transition shade. And this is what's just going to blend and just make sure everything comes together. So I'm gonna dip into this shade here using the same brush. It really doesn't matter. You can use the same brush and just apply that to blend out that shade. And just like that, we created a really simple eye look. Now the rest is up to personal preferences, which is your lashes, your eyeliner, whatever you want to do with that. Today I do want to use a bit of black eyeliner. So I'm going to use my Essence Kajal pencil eyeliner. This is in the shade black. And I'm just going to apply this to my waterline. Just like that, you can see that it really defined the eyes. Now, if you want, you can apply some to the top of the lids as well and do a bit of tight lining. And I just like to use really small strokes across my lash band. So you could see how the eye is coming together. So you could see the eye that's done compared to the one that's we didn't do anything on. Now you guys know I'm a lash girl, so I'm gonna go in with my Ardell Wispies. I'm gonna quickly pop this on. I do have a lash tutorial if you haven't checked it out. I go in detail on how to apply lashes, so I'll leave it on the screen right here for you to check out. But we're gonna pop these on. I just always feel like lashes really brings an eye look together. Look at that. Look at the difference. Lashes really just bring a look together. And this is like a really natural lash, especially if you're going to an event or something. I feel like this lash is not doing the most. I may be looking crazy saying this, but I feel like to me this is a really natural eyelash. And then of course, to finish up everything, I say whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So I'm gonna apply a bit of mascara to my bottom lashes. And I just like to apply some to my lashes and let it blend in with the falsies. All right, so that is it for this eyeshadow look, guys. So you guys are seeing what I did on this side compared to the other side. And eyeshadow does not need to be intimidating. I'm gonna do the other side just so that you could see the finishing look, and then we'll close off the video. All right, so this is the finishing look. This is how a really natural, subtle eyeshadow look will come out with, of course, my steps. This is a really simple eyeshadow look for a night out, for a wedding event, or just to have fun, plain makeup. I feel like this is a really easy look to even create some of your own makeup looks, like using different shades and things like that. So I tried to make sure this was really beginner friendly, easy to understand. You only need 4 brushes to complete a look like this. So the BK Beauty Core Extension brush set is a really good beginner set, really affordable as well. I'll leave all of my information in the description box below. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Leave some video ideas as well. And that is about it. I will see my sisters in my next video. Bye, guys.